Good evening, everybody, and welcome to my TED Talk. My name is Allison Whitworth, and today I will be presenting to you about my Genius Hour and what I have chosen to do for my Genius Hour is what happens to the body when you start to exercise. Now, before I begin, I would like to just speak a little bit about what happens in a Genius Hour and what it is all about. So, Genius Hour, what is that? A Genius Hour is an hour dedicated to students to research any topic that they like. First, before they actually begin researching the topic, it must be approved by instructor, teacher, anybody that has a choice to say yes or no before they can go ahead and study it. Next, they have to research and find some good stuff to back up what they find. And thirdly, they have to present it, like in a TED Talk. So, what I decided to do, like I mentioned, was what happens to the body when you start exercising. Now, why did I decide to do that? What enticed me? I thought, what do I like doing? I like working out, being active, stuff like that. So I thought I'm going to incorporate that into what I would like to study. So, when I was at the gym, I was thinking to myself, what is something that I can think about as I'm doing that? Sweating, I'm thirsty, I'm getting tired, and I'm like, why not do what happens when you start to exercise? Now, before I start talking about that, I just want to clarify there's two types of exercise that I really focus on. One was aerobic, which is anything that is prolonged exercise, such as running at an average pace, biking, stuff that you can do for a long time without getting too tired. That really pumps your blood, gets you going. Anything that's cardio, works your cardiovascular, so your heart. It's kind of working the whole body. And then also I want to do resistance training. So for example, bicep curls, squats, anything like that, that it's a quick few movement exercise that really takes a lot of effort and you kind of use all your energy up really quickly. So I want to distinguish the two of them because what happens to the body when you do those two are very different. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is breathing. So depending on what kind of exercise you're doing, I was focusing mostly on running for this. When you're running, normally if you start off at a good pace to get a warm-up, you should be running at about a pace that you could still talk to a friend and not be too tired. You shouldn't be huffing and puffing. And so that at that pace, your breathing pattern shouldn't increase too much or just a little bit. Now the faster you run will be the faster your breathing rate increases. So if I'm running along, running, and I'm running at about 6 miles per hour on the treadmill, I should be okay. But if I start going to about 8 miles per hour on the treadmill, that's when I'm going to get really tired. And that could sometimes change it to actually what we call anaerobic, which is where different cycles in your body change, and you're actually, obviously, your breathing pattern is going to increase. So that's what happens during aerobic exercise, where during resistance training, depending on what kind of resistance training you're doing, I was focusing mostly on bicep curls. So while you're doing it, you're not really increasing your breathing rate too much, especially at the beginning of your reps. So at the beginning of your reps, it's just going to be, your breathing pattern is probably going to stay the same. A lot of people, actually the way you're supposed to do it is just to go with the reps. So inhaling and exhaling, and maybe when you're done all your reps, that's when maybe your breathing pattern will increase a bit. So that's just touching on that. Next thing I want to talk about is sweating. Sweating is something that occurs when people start working out. It's very good for the body. And so what I want to focus on was really at what point did I start sweating during resistance and aerobic training. So for resistance, I didn't really find that I would start sweating until a lot longer into my exercises. I found that I could stay for a lot of the workout, didn't get too sweaty, and a lot of the literature really supports that. As opposed to aerobic, I find that you start getting sweatier a lot quicker. So by running on the treadmill, going on the bike, especially for a prolonged time, and depending what temperature setting you're in, if you're really running outside and it's hot, you're really going to notice that your sweating increases. Next, I want to talk about heart rate. So for resistance training, heart rate is pretty steady. You can see a little bit of influx of heart rate when you're doing some repetitions, but as you start to get to the end of your repetitions, your heart rate should even out. as opposed to when you're doing aerobic. Your heart rate's probably going to increase at the beginning to get your body used to what kind of aerobic exercise you're doing. And then as you kind of get used to the pace you're going at, your heart rate should kind of even out. Even though it will be higher than your resting heart rate, it won't be as high as if you're doing a maximal exercise. And finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is motivation. At what point are you at the gym that you start getting discouraged or you start getting tired and you don't want to finish your workout? So if I'm running and I'm at 10 minutes, I start thinking about something else. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I want to go hang out with a friend, do whatever. I find I kind of get a little drifted. Now this is per person, so I really wanted to find out what made me motivated, what kept me going. And then I talked to a few other people just to see how their motivation was when they were working out. So I found that if I was really in the mood for what I was doing, I could really stay motivated. And if I was doing a workout that I didn't like, that my motivation really sucked. So I've tried to find a bunch of workouts where I keep motivated. And so that's basically it for my Genius Hour. There's so many different variables that you can go through. And I just really wanted to focus these ones. And I'm really glad that you guys were here to share that with me. And I hope you have a great night. There will be after party, so please come join me and stay active, friends.